So for more on this, I'm joined now by Edward Lucas, who's a non-resident senior fellow and senior advisor at the Center for European Policy Analysis, and he joins me live from London. Thanks so much for being here with us. So I just want to start with your reaction to this. I mean, it always seemed from the minute that Prigozhin's short-lived mutiny failed as though he was on borrowed time, given Putin's grim track record.
Yes, Kim, I think either Putin was on borrowed time or Prigozhin was on borrowed time. One didn't really feel that Russia or indeed the planet was a big enough place for both of them. Putin really hates traitors, and he publicly called Prigozhin a traitor. Prigozhin had launched this mutiny and before that had insulted Putin personally, using language that one couldn't use on CNN. And so after the failure of the mutiny, this sort of temporary fix where Prigozhin was allowed to go and live in the Russian client state of Belarus and seemed to resume more or less his role in Russian public life, that always had to be temporary. And so I thought it would probably be falling out of a window that would be his end. As it is, it was a plane falling out of the sky.
So you wrote in the aftermath of the Prigozhin mutiny that, quote here, the Russian leader's power rests on his reputation for competence and decisiveness. So if Prigozhin here were killed on Putin's order, it would reinforce the other aspect of the president's image, which is as a vengeful strongman. I mean, what message do you think this sends to his rivals, and does this hint at a wider purge, do you think?
Well, I think there is probably a wider purge underway. We've seen General Surovikin, who was perhaps the most successful of the Russian generals in the Ukraine war, has been relieved of his role as an Air Force general. And it's thought that he may have been sympathetic to Surovikin. And we've also seen some other signs of purges inside the Russian elite. And so I think the system is fundamentally unstable. It relies, as I wrote a few months ago, on Putin's reputation for omniscience, for knowing everything, and omnipotence, being able to do everything, and for getting things right. And clearly he's not getting things right. It's not just the war in Ukraine, but Prigozhin should never have been able to launch that mutiny in the first place. That's what you have military intelligence for. And having launched it and having failed, he should have been behind bars or dead by the end of the day, not running around grandstanding. So I think that it shows the fundamental weakness of the Putin regime, that it's got to this stage. And I think we also are going to see several more shoes falling here as the rows go on about the division of the spoils, who gets Prigozhin's enormously lucrative empire of dirty tricks, mercenary operations in other countries and so on. And there'll be also a lot of paranoia within the Putin circle about who may be up, who may be down, and what's going to happen next.
Well, you mentioned Prigozhin's empire. There's a certain irony here. I mean, you wrote essentially that Prigozhin exemplified some of the most telling aspects of Putin's 24-year rule. Explain what you meant.
Well, I think the overlap between intelligence and dirty tricks, between politics, state administration and business, is the hallmark of the Putin regime. It actually started back in St. Petersburg in the 1990s, when Putin was a municipal bureaucrat with close ties to organized crime and business, and with his own background in the intelligence service. And that sort of kind of hybrid regime took over the whole country when Putin moved to Moscow and into the Kremlin. And Prigozhin kind of exemplifies this, because everything is always kind of a bit unclear. Is he really a businessman? What does he really own? What's he really doing? Who's he working for? Who's he accountable for? To? And we saw this very clearly with the Russian operations in Africa, which was selling sort of dictatorship in a box to African dictators, theoretically or superficially, as a commercial deal from the Wagner Corporation, but actually furthering the Kremlin's geopolitical interests. We also saw it with the infamous troll factory, these very effective disinformation operations run out of St. Petersburg from an anonymous office block by people hired from the so-called Internet Research Agency. And that was actually also part of Prigozhin's empire and was also doing the Kremlin's bidding. So this kind of blurred categories where you never quite know who anybody is or what they're doing exemplifies the Putin regime. And the fact that Prigozhin is gone now, having played his cards perhaps unwisely or rashly, doesn't, I think, alter the fact that this is the way the Russian system actually works.
Finally, we have pictures from Russian media showing people bringing flowers and candles to the Wagner Center. Do you think Prigozhin might be seen as a martyr here, maybe an unlikely inspiration to dissenters, maybe not popular dissenters, but among the elite perhaps?
Well, I'm not sure among the elite because they're very scared of change, and they would need a lot of convincing that some post-Wagner figure would be the right person to replace Putin. But I do think among the public, Putin's popularity is very broad, but also very shallow. And it was very striking during the coup, the failed coup, how very quickly Wagner was able to take over the important southern Russian city of Rostov. And he was greeted in the streets as a hero. And I think Russians will cheer for Putin while Putin's the top man, but as soon as anyone else comes along, they'll cheer for them instead, because they are basically fed up with the stagnant economy, with the war, and with all the other problems of the Putin regime, and indeed with Putin himself.
Listen, really appreciate your analysis on this important story. Edward Lucas, thank you so much.